Hey everybody, live here. How you doing? This is the Rovercast. We are deep into the closed beta test 2 for Wuthering Waves. As you can see, we have a wonderful guest with us today. I hope you guys are excited. I'm extremely excited about this one. And so I'm going to let our guest, Marco, introduce himself, tell us a little bit about himself, and then we can go around really quickly and just say hi to everybody. So,
Hey everybody, my name is Marco Meatball. I have a video game music YouTube channel. I talk about music from all sorts of games, but especially Punishing Gray Raven, and of course, eventually, and a bit of Wuthering Waves. Really, really excited to be here talking about music and just talking about all sorts of fun stuff. It's been really, really fun to play the closed beta, and yeah, I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks a ton.
And hello, everybody. You know who it is. It's Connor's Thoughts, covering PGR and Wuthering Waves content over at Connor's Thoughts. You can find me on every platform at Connor's Thoughts. And glad to be back with the boys, and honored to be here with Marco to get a little bit educated today. It's gonna be good.
Hi guys, Loba here. What's going on? Loving CBT2, Wuthering Waves. I can't stop playing. It's just great, and I'm just really glad to be here. Marco and all the boys as well. So looking forward to this episode.
What's up, everybody? It's Zoxiscon over at Zoxiscon Wawa, where we're doing nothing but Wuthering Waves. I mean, we don't got nothing else to do, just what we're doing over there. But yeah, either way, man, I'm really excited for today. I'm not as musically savvy as some of you guys here, so I'm gonna do my best.
I got you. Don't worry.
this is Life Lessons, NCNL. So you can find me on YouTube. It'll be in the description. Life Lessons, NCNL on Twitch. No Christ, No Life on Twitter, all the things. So we'll be streaming Wuthering Waves as well. Little note, some of you all might not know about me. I actually majored in music in college. So I played alto sax, tenor sax, and piano to a degree because you kind of have to. They kind of make you do that. So yeah, this will be a really fun conversation. It's been some time though, so don't judge me. But this will be a fun conversation nevertheless. So let's get started. Marco,
What's up?
gosh, this is such a vast topic, and so it was very difficult thinking of like the best questions. So
Yeah.
right.
I
So
know.
how about we start with this? Maybe if you can just give us a very short. I'll start with two questions. You can give us the short answer first, and then the expanded answer. So what is your musical background?
Mhm.
And then the next question I want to ask you, which is more close to Wuthering Waves, just generally, because we'll ask more specific questions later. What are your thoughts so far on Wuthering Waves? I know that just from a purely popular standpoint, they've released, believe, two songs in terms of like the YouTube channel from Vanguard Sound. I think one's called Flow, and then another one, they just released a new one recently. I forgot what it's called. But so yeah, so musical background, and what are your thoughts just generally so far from where what we have with Wuthering Waves and their music?
Do you want both of those to be short, or do you want me
No,
to
no, no. So you can say the first one being short, your musical background, and then you can kind of
and then the long one? Sure.
yeah, yeah.
You got it. I was an opera singer for a decade. I toured and gigged for 5, 6 years. Realized it wasn't for me. Left that behind. Started a voiceover career. I've been doing that for 3 years, and then I accidentally became a YouTube person, a YouTube creator. A very blessed accident. And really, yeah, that was pretty much it. I just spent 10 years just like in the trenches, just grinding it out, trying to be the best opera singer I could be as a tenor. And then I decided to pivot away, and now I try to help people see and hear the emotions through music. Essentially, what I did on stage. So that was that's the short version of that. It's a little more nuanced, but and then as far as Wuthering Waves, it's been really interesting because I come from I fell in love with Punishing Gray Raven uh, about a year ago now, and I'm still not caught up. In fact, yesterday I was playing and I was like, I should just start the story. I'm not going to stream this. I just want to play it because I just have to catch up. But I'm like really close to surviving Lucian, so I'm like, "Ugh, I know that I should stream this, but I really just want to play it anyway. So for me, it's been really interesting not to compare and contrast because I know how good Vanguard Sound is, and like it's really interesting because Wuthering Waves is so large. And so the thought process is, okay, well, how do we? Not everything can be a banger because that would be utterly exhausting. And some of the thoughts that I had at first, I was like, well, where are the
Ooh.
bangers? There were no bangers at first. And I thought that the battle music would always be a bit more intense. And so what I noticed is that the overworld music is really interesting because it has this mixture of lo-fi, piano, flutes. It's very like sort of, and I haven't gone to all the different zones, so I don't fully know if it changes region per region in the area or not. Well, I guess zone per zone rather than region. Um, but I really find it interesting. It's not until we get into like boss battles where that like really kicks in, and I think it's so appropriate because on the one hand I kind of wish that the like regular battle music was just a little bit dialed up, because something I noticed is the overworld music is really peaceful, really chill, but then it doesn't click in when you're actually in combat, besides that boom ba-da-da-da-dum, that thing it does. Like it's weird. There's no melody, it's sort of jaggedly rhythmic. Anyway, but then you get into the boss battles, and then you get into this like intense, like that sound that we know that Vanguard sound can produce, that sound that we hear, from Punishing Gray Raven, that sort of borrowed EDM thing. So it's interesting though, because even the stuff that we hear in Punishing Gray Raven is really like well-rounded, whereas Wuthering Waves music so far is EDM and has that trance like thing about it, but it doesn't feel as cohesive to me as like Narwhal or
So
or yeah, stuff like that.
I have two questions for you.
Mhm.
Have you heard, and everybody else, feel free if you have a question for Marco, feel free. Have you heard the dim forest? So it's like the forest area music.
Not yet.
I strongly encourage you listen to the dim forest's music. It changes it up quite a bit.
Cool.
It's a little bit of a bop, to be honest with you. But the second thing, this was just something I thought about because I've heard some different conversations around the music in the game. Do you think it's possible? I do personally, that we are just not hearing the entire score yet, like because it's the beta. They didn't put everything in there yet. We
Yeah,
might
and
have some like filler music.
impossible to judge from a beta anyway, especially because it's a closed beta. It's not a finished product. It's not even like anywhere near the final build. So I mean, it's impossible to know. And plus, I'm sure they're actively working on it. Now, all that said, I know that basically came off as like slightly critical, but what I mean to say is that they're really, really gifted at Vanguard Sound, and I know what they produce really like intimately at this point. And I think that based on the fact that we have different zones that have to have different music, like I said at the very start of this long conversation about this, like it's impossible to have banger after banger after banger. That's simply, and even in PGR, we don't have that. We have the lobby music, we have the music when someone's talking. So like a little bit of variety is important. I'm really excited to hear where we end up. And honestly, it's such a chill, like the overworld experience is so chill and so relaxing.
Yeah.
Um, I love that they
I
use
love
that
that.
lo-fi element in there. Such a
Yeah.
lo-fi element.
That
So have
actually, oh, go for
oh
it,
no, go,
Zox.
no so have you had the opportunity to actually like hear any of the scoring for like the story yet? Like I think there's like one scene, like for example, like Scar, he
That
starts
that that was
storytelling.
very cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
I heard that.
yeah.
Super
So
cool.
so how do you feel like with that in conjunction to like the facial expression? Because like for me personally, I'm not like a musically inclined like individual. So for me, it was like that expression via the character, even though there was no voice acting. And I'm just like in my head, I'm like, I can imagine how it is with voice acting on top of it.
Yeah.
But how do you feel like that's going to play out, as they continue to develop the game with not only expressing the emotion through the characters, but also with the proper music?
Well, I mean, essentially, we have to look at the fact that music in general is there to, especially video game music, is there to aid in telling a story. It's programmatic. So everything is based around the purpose of enhancing what's occurring on the stage, or in this case, in the video game, right? So,
Mhm.
like, the whole sequence with Scar, and that's pretty much where I ended up. I was doing the next thing after that, and that was sort of where you have to fight the motorcycle thing. I think that's a side mission anyway. But that's sort of where I ended my playthrough on Wednesday. And the thing is like Scar's music. So like Scar, I'm not even entirely sure that Scar is the main antagonist. In fact, I don't think he is. But what I find really in fact, I know he's not, because he even says he's not. But yes, because he's with the
Yeah,
girl.
you're right.
Anyway,
You're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
Exodus is his group. He's just one of many.
he's one of many. But his it's interesting because he's not inherently evil, and what we hear is a damaged, broken, um, sort of a person who's had to like end up being a part of this organization because he didn't have anywhere to turn. And so it's interesting because the whole wolf sequence there, it does sound evil, it does sound nefarious, it does sound dangerous. And Scar is a dangerous character and also a very cool character. But the point is that musically, um, sorry, it's like getting into the weeds trying to like articulate the thought process, and it's 9 in the morning, so I'm like, I've been up since 5, so my brain's like, but yeah,
No, you're
I do
fine.
think that the music really accents his characteristics, and it's interesting how he's not one dimensional because the music fleshes him out so that he has like a 3D, we have a 3D image of him even if we don't have the voiceover, and yeah, but his facial expressions and the way the music swells are like, or like, I can't remember all the specific notes and stuff, but it's really really interesting how music aids in that sort of like launching off point with him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, I think it really it complements his character well overall because connecting it to his kind of character background moment in the story without introducing any kind of like spoilers there. It's not told in a very like direct and explicit way. There's like a lot of analogy that's
Yeah,
incorporated
yeah.
of try and interpretation. And so in a way, the complexity of his character and trying to understand who he truly is almost like leans itself into the music in a similar way of like there's like a certain air of like mystery to it where like there's danger. We all sense the danger. It's like that instinctual portion of it, but it's like, but what
Mhm.
kind of danger am I encountering? And so
Yeah,
I do really like how that connection is there in his score.
and also, I mean, think about the fact that like, no one is just one way. There are so many different sides to all of us, and music does such a good job of, especially when it's composed well, of showcasing the different perspectives. So like, even though someone, hang on, my dog's hair's in my mouth. Thank you.
It's okay.
Even it's always, I'm just always eating her hair. Even if what someone is showcasing to the front that they're presenting, the music often will aid in the subtext of what's occurring. So like, even though we see Scar as this like vicious, vile, sort of dangerous person, behind that we do sense that feeling of loss of all the things that occur in that village, and and all the stuff that sort of it represents this sort of past, or this alternate sort of the things unsaid. And that's really like the goal of a good composer and a good like team, is to like, okay, how do we flesh out a character, um with like a prime example would be um Luna in PGR. There's a lot of nuance with that character, even though we know what we know about the Ascension Network and all of that. And like, it's interesting how like there's this back portion here, the subconscious, that we hear through music.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I,
Oh,
I can I, if I can just ask one clarifying question. You were talking a little bit about the combat music just in like the open world,
Mhm.
and I think you were looking for like a little bit more there based on what your statement was. And I was listening to it again briefly, just I wanted to update and make sure I was thinking of the same thing. A lot of the musical motifs in Wuthering Waves are like, incorporating like Discord, like, Discord
Mhm.
melodies. And I find actually that the combat song, that's what is kind of incorporating there. It almost feels like there's a little bit of like conflict
that's
in the
interesting.
song itself that like in a way like thematically it kind of makes sense to me and it still like works. So I'm curious, like what are you looking for in that in kind of that open world combat music that you think would really like bring it back together in a way that still makes sense in a game playing
Yeah.
environment?
Well, the thing that I struggle with as a listener is when things are overly disjointed. So for me, melodies like king when it comes to getting players to be invested into something. I find that melody, basically, my thought process on it is that what we're mostly dealing with is ambient music, right? And ambient music is good because ambient music is oftentimes, you see this a lot in World of Warcraft, where it's like telling the story of a place rather than like the story of the character fighting something. or the character like traversing the landscape. And so what's interesting is that when we hear the music in the overworld, that's really like sort of describing the bleak, and the world of Wuthering Waves is fairly bleak, even though it does have these beautiful colors in it. There is a bleakness to that, and I think that that's enhanced by the interchange. Sometimes there's a melody, sometimes there's not, sometimes there's a flute, sometimes there's piano, and those things, those little accents really add a lot. But the combat music, what I felt when I jump into it, especially not the boss combat music, or what I noticed there is that it's just there's a clash between, like you said, there's a lot of rhythm, and there's this melody that wants to come in at times, but it doesn't necessarily. And if I'm remembering correctly, what I would like to see is more of that through line of a melody. But that may be intentional. They may not want that. They may want to highlight the clash by having a fight between rhythm and melody, which is possible. It's interesting because every melody has rhythm. Makes sense. But there are certain ways of creating soundscapes that are only rhythmic and don't have like a melody. And I guess maybe because of my background, I'm just always seeking a melody.
Yeah. So I wanted to touch really quick on that Scar thing. Really, really small aside, but one of the cool things about the Scar thing, and we talked about this before, is just that sometimes you don't know if he's actually telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, is he telling the truth, or is he just perceiving the wolf as a wolf when the wolf wasn't really a wolf? Maybe it was just his perception, because Yang Yang does not believe him the entire time, right?
Right.
And I thought that was really good storytelling, because it really had me like, man, I kind of almost think he might be telling at least partially the truth, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I heard someone say was, a villain is someone who's been hurt, who wants other people to feel their hurt.
Mm-hmm.
A hero is someone who's been hurt, who wants to protect other people from feeling the same hurt. And just kind of how you were talking about, like, it seems like he was put in a position, basically. He was put in a position to make a decision. And so it wasn't like always his goal to do that. But to go back to the music, one of the questions I want to ask you kind of touched on it a bit. I think I'd love for the viewers to kind of have an idea of what music really does in these type of games, right? Because I always think about the fact of, like, there's certain games where I'll walk into an area and it's just so memorable because that area's music is just like, sometimes I'll even like, whether it's the fight music or the ambient music, right? Just the music surrounding it, where it's just like, I'll go to that area just so I can hear that music. Or if I'm in a fight, I will intentionally like prolong that fight just so the fight soundtrack will still keep going, because it hits so much. And so I think sometimes people might think about the music as just background noise,
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if you can just speak to that idea of just like the significant role that the music plays in these games. And you did, like I said, you did touch on that a little bit.
I did,
But
yeah. I can expand
Give
on it.
me a second. I just want to
Yeah, so I mean, I don't mind. So basically, essentially with music, it's a really interesting thing because music plays such a vital role in the process of storytelling. So the way that we have to look at music is a couple different ways. In video games, like I mentioned earlier, we have something called programmatic music, and programmatic music's purpose is to aid in telling a story, which is why I've often it's not accurate, but calling video games modern operas to me is not totally far from the truth, because
I like
opera,
that.
in order to opera to live, it requires music, and in order to tell the story, it requires music, much in the same way that now granted, and that's the thing, I think video games also deviate from movies and film, because movies and film need music in order to like hit emotional points and stuff, but there's so much more time in video games that like the music is essentially an integral part, much in the same way that like a 3-hour opera requires music. A movie, you don't need music for every scene, and in fact sometimes we don't need music at all, or it's totally a detriment to it. I always think about God, I think it was the scene in Interstellar. It's the meme where Matthew McConaughey's crying, and I'm pretty sure there was music in that. That score is so good. That's a peak moment that like the music raises the stakes. But I guarantee you, if you pulled the music out, and this might be contentious, but I do feel that Matthew McConaughey's delivery of that performance would still keep the stakes really high. Whereas in video games, I find that music is an integral and essential part of the storytelling. And I was playing through the beginning of Avatar, Forgotten Lands or whatever that just came out, like the end of
Pandora, something or
Pandora.
another.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And the first 40 minutes all has music underneath. And in games like Wuthering Waves, music is an integral part because it's so it's not like Red Dead, where Red Dead like leans on the audio design and the like natural like aesthetic of what it means to be in the Wild West, right? In this, because it's almost like this it's an imaginary, it feels more like it's so hard to explain, but essentially it's like we're in an open world, but that open world is not rooted in reality in a way, even though the stakes have to be high for us to connect to it
To
and
actually
feel.
care, yeah.
Yeah, but in the case of Red Dead, you can kind of get away with it because you can have birds, and the whole point is like photorealism, and so it's a different
Mhm.
aesthetic. But so music plays an integral part in storytelling, and that's why when we meet characters for the first time, we'll hear music, or when we are in a battle, we need music, or when we're interacting with someone we love, we need music. Like it just raises the stakes so that we as listeners in a programmatic world where we're trying to connect to experiences, that music is going to make us feel more connected to the characters. I'm trying to think. Oh, and then the other difference is like one of the big things for me that I've experienced is melody. Melody, the way a tune, the hummability of a piece
Mm,
is colossal. And I
yeah.
think like there's a reason why you can't hum a piece from Dead Space because it's not intended
Yeah.
that a lot of
Bird.
yeah. There's a lot of tracks in Dead Space that are not bad. Even Resident Evil 4 actually has some melodic pieces, but in general, like horror games, the element there is not to make pieces that you're going to end up singing, right?
Yeah.
But if you play a game like Punishing Gray Raven in this case, we all know what Narwhal's motif is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Da, 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 da,
Did
right?
you hear in the opening
I did,
cinematic?
of course.
Yeah, I mean, of course you did, but that was
First four notes.
like, oh,
Yeah.
4 notes, I was like, sneaky, sneaky, but
Yeah.
like, and that's, and the thing is, what's beautiful about that, and a composer would probably be able to speak to this even better than I could, but the beauty of that is that once you hear like 4 notes and also the where they are in the scale and how they're approached from the bottom to the top, ba, 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 that's 5 notes. I mean, that's ba, 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 that's 4 notes. Well, it's 5 notes, but one of them is repeated. Point is, it's like that's it, that's a simple melody that then the composer then extrapolates on, creates a whole world around it,
Mm,
and then when you listen to that when you're in a fight sequence or even out of context, you'd be like, oh my god, this is so cool, because it connects you to some part of yourself. And this
yeah.
is the thing that I get really like excited about with music, and also because I was forced to train myself into understanding the emotional context of pieces. But like, the music is amazing because once there's a melody, all of a sudden you're clicked in and you're like, oh
Mm,
man, I can sing this. There's a reason why people are still singing the Zelda theme. Not because there's been so many iterations, but because the original with Koji Kondo was so like melodically focused that has lingered for, 35,
yeah.
40 years. Does that make
Yeah.
Yeah,
sense? I'm
man.
sorry.
Deku Forest has been stuck in my head forever. It's so good.
I
Also, quick
mean,
shout out to Hans Zimmer on that Interstellar
oof,
reference. Absolute
Yep.
amazing score. If you haven't listened to that, absolutely
so good.
unreal. It's a fantastic,
This is very
fantastic
emotional
piece there.
I
scoring.
I,
actually.
I
believe it or not, I have not, so I guess I
Oh, you
need
need
to.
oh,
to.
you should.
Oh
You also
no.
should
I
see the
have
movie.
what I wanted to bring up there is I think what's important is like the a lot of the elements that you're talking about, those melodic elements, or that hummability and finding that can be brought forward in most kinds of music. I'll say, like,
Mhm.
I can even think of like the Doom Eternal soundtrack, which
Oh
is
yeah.
like a very rough, heavy metal, like aggressive soundtrack, and yet a lot of people still recognize like the Doom Eternal song. Like
Mhm.
that guitar riff that like people use in like in memes and references, it's still done in a way that like you know it when you hear it. So you can still find that distinct sound in different kinds of musical genres. And I don't think it's, yeah, just having that, because I was thinking like the Inferno Rider definitely goes into that genre a little bit more than necessarily like the Impermanence Heron does, which has more of like a almost dubsteppy
Have you heard the
ambient
Impermanence
situation.
Heron yet?
I haven't gotten there yet.
No
Okay,
worries, but
Oh man.
it's so good, so
it's
But
good.
more in the vein of like like you're saying, the a lot of the open world is more like ambient and what I would call like almost like not house music, but that just that more like ambience rhythmic kind of vibe. The
Lo-fi.
Impermanence Heron, lo-fi, thank you. The Impermanence Heron goes more into like Skrillex almost style EDM and like dubstep.
Dubstep, yeah.
And then the Inferno Rider goes into like heavy metal. So I love that they're bringing in all these different portions, but to me at least, I do still find there's a bit of like that electronic continuity that still carries through each of them, even when they do experiment in that. Also, Life touched on this before, but I've just been sitting on this. The Dim Forest song that he was saying there too.
I was
think
literally
it's
about to mention
called-
that too.
I
It's
think
so
it's called a
good.
kettlebell. Is it a kettlebell? Is what that instrument is? That it's like
It's like a light drum. Yep.
It's the lead in that song, and it is like
Is he has like a jungly sound, like like
yeah,
a
it kind of sounds like an aluminum drum kind of thing. Like that. That's
oh
what I'm thinking.
yeah,
Oh, like a steel drum.
Yeah,
yeah,
I think so.
yeah, like a steel drum.
It
Yeah,
sounds
yeah.
so good. It sounds amazing.
It's a bop.
Yeah.
Where a steel drum is concave, it's the one that's like
Oh, the
convex.
outer one. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's why I think it's called a kettle drum. So like it's
Oh, yeah,
similar
yeah,
to
yeah,
the
fair.
theory.
So it's
But it has that different, more open sound to it, I guess you could say, and it's great.
I'll play
go
a
into
little
that
bit
place.
later and see how far I can get. I'd like
I wanted
to hear
to
that.
ask a question for Marco. I don't know if you managed to get to the elusive realm area for
I don't think so.
I
don't
highly
think
doubt
so.
it. It took me
man.
like it's
took-
so long to get there.
When you get there, Marco, just take it all in. It's just amazing. Oh my god. I'm not
It's
gonna
the
even spoil
roguelike
it for you.
mode.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the roguelike mode. It unlocks at you level 27, so that'll be like you'll know when you get there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like 13 right now, so it's
No
hard.
pressure.
What the only thing that I dislike about my job is that there's always something to do. And then also like there are so many games that I also want to play like as a person. Like right now I'm playing through Last Epoch. It just came out. It's the only ARPG I've ever cared about. I've never cared about Diablo or Path of Exile. I know they're both very good with their own things, but Last Epoch just like hits a spot of just like turning my brain off. And so like, but I'm not actually going to talk about that. I mean, I could, but like, I'm not going to, right? Or like Final Fantasy Rebirth is coming out soon. So like, unless it's
I
already
actually almost
out.
forgot about that game. Like people were telling me like, "Oh man, are you gonna play this game?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot." Like, because everybody's been talking about like Elden Ring DLC coming out and Grand Blue
Right.
Fantasy Relink, and I honestly
That's another one. Grand Blue Fantasy Relink like stole my heart. I mean, like I think I haven't been able to touch it in like 4 days. I literally like think about it all the time. It's like such a good game. But like I didn't have time to play through Final Fantasy 7 again. So I've just been watching the cutscenes, like a 13-hour movie version. And last time I played it, I was like 10, and I actually hated Final Fantasy 7. And I was like, why are all these remakes and remasters? And I don't care about whatever, Crisis Core, who cares? But now then I rewatched it and I was like, oh, this is the best Final Fantasy story by far. And I've played, I've played most of the ones 7 on. But anyway, all that to say, like, there's not enough time. So it sucks because like I love Punishing Gray Raven. I love Wuthering Waves. I would consider myself, and maybe someone would be like, well, you're not a diehard fan, but like I feel like I'm a diehard fan of Punishing. I will go to the grave and be like, Punishing Gray Raven's a great game. People should not sleep on that game. They will, and they do anyway. They should play it. Wuthering Waves is the same thing. Have I been able to finish it? No.
I'm the same way, bro. Like I'm at chapter 13 in the story.
Oh
and
yeah.
I'm like right at the point where everybody's like, okay,
so
this is
good.
when things get crazy.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, but I've been trying to play the game too. So it's like I'm trying to do the dailies, I'm trying to do the pain cage, I'm
'Cause
trying
it's
to do the
so
story.
fun.
I have to catch up, but then Wuthering Waves is out, and so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna catch up.
I know.
And then Crimson Weave is out, so I'm just like, I understand
I
what
know.
you mean. There's only so much time. But
It's a miracle that I played through Warframe and caught up with Warframe.
Yeah, I saw that.
Warframe.
You caught up on Warframe, man. All the games you keep picking are like the world's longest games. You're picking like 3 different JRPGs.
I know. The One Piece of games.
Warframe was 140 hours from December to the end of January. I loved every second of it though.
It's an insane grind fest. I like
so much fun. I loved every second of it.
So I got a question, Marco. Is there a game that comes to your mind that you feel like would be great for Wuthering Waves to pull inspiration from? Like outside of PGR, like is there another game that you felt like kind of would fit the vibe or the world and just like what they're already presenting, or you feel like would add more value to what they're doing?
Yeah, there is a game. I mean, I think Nier is the most obvious example of that. And I know that a lot of people would want me to say the other game that this game is similar to, and I'm not going to.
I don't know what you're
Because
talking about, Marco. Sorry.
let's keep it
No idea.
let's keep it a family gathering here. But I would definitely say that Nier, actually I could see a Nier collab that just like dropped. You don't even have to change anything. Just drop 2B in and you're
2B in Wuthering
It's gonna
Right.
like if she's in the game, it will literally
Money.
feel like you're playing the game.
money.
Yeah.
It's
I feel
insane.
like that's gonna open up the game to. I've noticed that like that's the thing I've noticed with some games, like with even like you look at PGR, they've been super intentional with like even their collaborations. Like they have Nair. I think the only other one I've seen was Black Rock Shooter, if I'm not
That's
mistaken.
another one, yeah.
And so it's like they're very, very intentional. They don't just have like
Yeah.
like hey McDonald's collab. Like it's like they try to keep it they try to keep it within a
Are
certain
those shots I hear?
Well, and the thing is that like PGR already had Nier in it, you know, and
Yep.
I started playing PGR right at the end of that, so I didn't pull.
Same.
Started
I
playing
only got
PGR because
9S.
of it,
Same.
actually.
I only got 9S. I played it like on mobile, but I just couldn't. Just me personally, I couldn't get into the mobile way of doing it. So
Yeah.
I tried it the first time, didn't do it. Then when I got, I missed it. I was so sad.
Yeah, I'm really
Sounds like a
upset.
skill issue to me.
They taunt me. They
You're
taunt
right.
me in my members list. Like it hurts so
No,
bad.
I started literally. There was like 4 days left in the Nier collab is when I started.
Damn,
so
am
I
I
had
the
no
only one
chance
that
of
started
getting
early? I
anything
started the
on.
first day that came out. I was like so excited.
Zox was a day oneer.
Yeah.
For me, yeah, I was a day one. Yeah, yeah.
Did you manage to get all of them? Because I only missed one. I
I
missed
did.
A2. I missed A2. I couldn't
The
get
first
A2.
time they ran the Nair event, I think they gave away. Was it?
It was probably
9S and 2B
Yeah,
free?
it was 9S
was
and
both.
2B. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they gave them away
Man.
for free. Yeah.
I need a rerun
And
of
they
that.
had
I don't think it'll ever
Same.
happen.
And they had skins too on top of that, which was insane for all three of them. Yeah.
I feel like Connor now. I feel like Connor now when we talk about Wuthering Waves. Well, not anymore, but when we used to talk about CBT1.
Oh yeah.
My gosh.
But I think even musically, if you were, I mean, you just saw it with Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. They threw in 2B
Yeah.
in an upgraded version of Weight of the World, and there's no reason why. I mean, it's cool because Okabe-san and like that whole soundscape of, you know, the music of Nier and Alice and stuff, it actually fits like in and of itself. I think that'd be a great collab. And also like I think that game Wuthering Waves to me in a lot of ways could be in the Nier universe based on its aesthetic and stuff. You know, I think Nier's a little bit darker, a little bit more grimy, a little bit more broken. You know, I don't think they're going for that, but even still, like it's cool, and I'm actually really excited to see like where Kuro goes in terms of really digging into their aesthetic. And one of the other things I've really liked about Wuthering Waves that is actually, and this is of course like a subject of intense debate in very small circles on the
I
internet.
disagree. If vehemently.
On what?
You said it's a subject of intense debate, so I was just like, all right, let's do it.
Oh.
It doesn't matter what it is. We disagree.
We riot.
Sorry, the dogs are barking. But what is it too loud? Is it okay?
No, you're fine.
You're fine.
Okay. But one of the things I really like is that they're choosing to go with the darker. So I was playing through PGR yesterday and I was looking through the cast of characters, and what I think I really love besides the white-haired woman trope in anime is, which I'm not even I'm not even an anime person, so I can't even like say like I have some sort of feel about it, but like Luna, Alpha, like, you know, God, there's so many, Bianca,
Karanita.
Carney. So like all these characters have this white hair aesthetic, and I just think that like the color hues are perfect to me. I had some folks that were on a stream with me and they were like, "Oh, everyone kind of looks the same. It's a little drab." I'm like, "Drab? This is perfect to me." Now, it is funny though because the men all look like they're going to a job and the women do not. So I think like that is there's room for maybe we changed that a little bit, but like
Yeah.
it was funny having a conversation with somebody. They were like, "Yeah, the women look like they're not going to work," and I was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, the men definitely look like they are working people." So yeah, I think that can be adjusted, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's I love the aesthetic of the game.
Do we think
Until
we
you
should
get
make the men look less like a job?
Yeah,
Is that what you're arguing for?
like why does
Should
that
we
dude
take
have a suit?
more clothes off the men? Is that what we're?
I will
Maybe
say
less clothes on the
though,
men,
we
more
have
clothes on the women, less clothes on the men.
the swimsuit skin for what is his name? Is it Chrome? No, it's not
Oh,
Chrome.
Really?
Lee.
Lee,
Hyper Lee.
Lee, yeah, the
Yeah.
swimsuit skin for Lee.
And people like
Yeah.
nah. I wanted to say this real quick. This is something I just thought about instantly. What were your thoughts when you saw okay, there's this new game, Wuthering Waves, or however you first figured out about Wuthering Waves, and it was just like, wait a second, Wuthering Waves, Concerto effect, Forte, like
Oh,
guys are just gonna make a whole game about music, like like I've heard some theories. Some people are saying like the grounding theme for this whole universe is gonna be like music theory or something like that. Like who knows, right? But it's just like, what were your thoughts when you were just like, yo, I do music video game stuff, and y'all are just gonna hand me a whole game that is cut that drowns itself essentially, no pun intended, in music.
yeah, I mean, I love it, and I love that when you have, two pairs of the same element, it's called the sonata, and like that's, and I even looked up what sonata was on my stream when I played it for like 6 hours the first day. Like, I think it's great, and everybody has a sound wave. Like, I think leaning in on that is so interesting because so often it's just not. At the very least, it'll start a conversation like, "What's a concerto? Like, what's a sonata? Why is it called sonata? What does that mean?" And then someone may inevitably look it up, and that's that's the sort of like music education that you really can't. I mean, I'm not saying that anybody will look it up, but I'm sure one person who has played it is like, "What's a sonata?" And and I think that that's the kind of music education that I think the classical music industry and the music education world sort of can't have access to, which is going to people. And I think one of the biggest problems, this is a separate conversation, but one of the biggest problems with the music industry and with classical music industry especially is that they oftentimes, even though they try outreach, but realistically, like you're always hitting the barrier where classical music wants you to come to it. And even when we do outreach or we do operas for elementary schools, like, yes, that's going to people, but I think there's too much of a divide. And what's amazing about a game like this is that it's like if someone looks up sonata form or, from like from a video game, like I just think that that's going to be such a better way to get someone naturally interested in the subject of music. And that's so, yeah, I was excited. Yeah, is the answer.
Yeah. I feel like that kind of it coincides with like how I tell people all the time. Like I learned a lot of my vocabulary from playing video games because they use terminology that you're just like, wait, what does it mean to say like ravishing, for example? That was like
Sure.
I was playing a video game when I learned that word. I was like, what is ravishing? And then it's like, oh, this is just another way to say beautiful, like and so I definitely agree with that. I feel like for me, that's not a musically inclined individual. It is making me more aware of like, oh, that is called something. It's like what I've heard it before, but I didn't know it was a specific name attached to it. I'm just like that thing that does that ding sound, and you're
Mhm.
like, well, that might have been a triangle or something, like so like stuff like that. Yeah, I definitely agree.
What it makes me excited for, I'll say just so we're clear, I have a very like surface level knowledge of like musical theory. Like I'm familiar with some of the terms. I did a little bit, in high school back in the day, but I'm not like deeply educated on it.
Mm.
But what I found in at least all the theory and terms that they've incorporated, they are relevant to like the mechanics that they like
Yeah.
offer or bring along. Like there's a direct connection in some way. So kind of like what you were saying, Live, if the whole game is kind of built off of like music theory, I'm interested to see what some of those other like components like get connected to. Maybe they're new mechanics or other things that we get introduced to later on, like things like fortissimo and like talking about like other things that you incorporate into the structure of a song. It's like, is there going to be some kind of fortissimo feature or a mechanic that gets incorporated? It starts to like percolate in the brain a
Yeah,
little
like a
bit,
high, like
the
a
ideas
buff
that
or
I'm listening
something,
to.
or like
Exactly.
and
So
potentially, right? What if it deeps like having a decent understanding of music theory could potentially give you a leg up in terms of lore? because
Yeah.
maybe like for example, let's just say technically Scar has his name, right? But let's just say the Fraxitas, which is the group that he's a part of, the higher members are like they have like maybe their names are something music related, and so you can kind of like look at that and have an idea of like maybe some of their motivations or whatever. Like maybe like has something to do with dissonance or you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
just
yeah.
yeah.
No, it's true. I mean, go ahead.
Sorry. I was gonna say like one thing we've talked about at another time is like the idea of we would love to see team compositions result in different kind of like finisher effects that you can do based on the team members you have in there. Like so maybe they introduce like crescendos, like I don't know, where like if you
Like
have
chords
certain
or something.
yeah, like almost like treating each character like a chord that comes together to create this new attack, this new ability, or something that comes into play. Like I just love the opportunity that's there to expand into that. I'm excited to see where you're going. But
Well, I
what
mean,
were you saying there,
you know,
Marco?
we have a company, Kuro has not shied away from, Selena Tempest and Selena Capriccio. I mean, like these are like perfectly good examples of a company that understands the landscape of music, and at least enough to, there's those I believe those abilities are called musical name. I mean, hell, she fights with a cello. I mean, like I
The
triple S.
Exactly.
the
I
other one is
triple
a
S for
And a
flute,
sure.
right?
flute.
Yeah, and the
And
They
the
flute.
just
flute, yeah.
Capriccio.
dug in.
And yeah, they dug in. Not only that, but the 6-star flute's called Zarastro, which is the magic flute. It's like the base. It's the father of Pamina. He's like the sun god in magic flute. So I mean, like they had to do some sort of research. Now other games have done that too, but I find it really unique and special that they lean on the musical thing. And also, I mean, even Isla. I mean, like Isla.
Yeah.
I say Ayla.
Ayla.
Yeah.
All right.
Same. That's what I say too. Yeah.
But like leaning into the whole painting and art, and like the whole event last patch was all about painting and like stopping art curators from like so I mean, like clearly it's an educated, cultured group of people that care at least enough to be like, let me throw in a musician who uses a flute and can enter into another dimension while using her finisher, like, you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
I have high hopes for what they'll do. And it's actually cool that they lean into the music thing anyway.
I feel like the one advantage I have during those patches in PGR is as a Canadian, I can actually read the French names.
Yeah, that is an advantage for sure.
Fair, 100%. That's plot armor at its finest.
Yeah, basically. So I got one question. It's because
Mhm.
I'm this guy. So I know I play video games for very specific reasons, like, like character design, combat, stuff like that. And like you said just now, like you're like, basically with the girl that plays the flute or the cello, you're like, I instantly triple S her. I
Yeah.
think that's what you said, right?
Yeah.
So would there be a type of musical character that you would actually be interested in seeing in Wuthering Waves once they get to that point? Because I think they already have kind of started playing into that concept of like characters with the Discord and echoes.
Encore.
Yeah, encore. Yeah,
Encore, yeah.
encore. Yeah, like would there be a certain type of or a resonator that you would like to see? And maybe I would say even more so to kind of round this question out is what instrument would you be interested in seeing them kind of be revolved around more so?
It's so interesting. I mean, I definitely think that there's a world where a resonator could come in who has had a more like city experience, a more cultured experience. And so, not that you have to be cultured to understand music. So when I say that, I don't mean like just like someone who's like traveled a lot, and so
Mhm.
somehow we meet them along their travels. And I could easily see, like, it's funny because my instinct when you were talking about a musical instrument, and it would be not feasible, but like an organ player, like an organ, like I could just picture some like EDM organ up in there, and I'm like really excited about that. But realistically, I mean, a singer, a piano, well, probably like a violinist. Like I can't imagine like an opera singer per se, but if they wanted a male version of that, I would happily lend my voice to that.
Let you voice,
Yeah,
yeah,
I would
yeah.
As soon
figure
as you
out
said,
I would figure out how to do that. But
as soon as you said
Cool.
pianist, I was like a guitar.
You
Before
heard
you
from
said
the
pianist,
Rovercast. Get
yeah.
Marco in the game.
Listen, I would love that opportunity. But point is, like, I do think that there's a world where a singer could be in it. I think it wouldn't come for a couple at least a couple expansions just as they
Yeah.
build the world out. And I'm also very curious to see, like, because I know that they've got a plan in place, and I know that they are clearly very passionate about this project. And we saw it in the developer conversation, like this, the fact that they're constantly adjusting and you know, I think if there's one thing I did get a little bit like on a intense tangent about the 50-50 because I strongly dislike 50-50 and I'm not afraid to say that. Like 50 I know the weapon banner is perfect and like people are very happy about that. But that too should be like that's some like a minimum that's like a minimum bar thing that should already be there anyway. But
Yeah.
like a 50-50 is tough because like when I pulled for Crimson Weave recently, I was like, "Oh, I'm at 59 pity. I'm a getter in the next one." You know what I mean? Whereas if it's like 50-50, it's like, okay, now I know that they have other things in place apparently to like mitigate that sort of loss, but I just I don't mind my point is I don't mind supporting Kuro with my wallet because I trust that their vision, you know, yes, it's a giant corporation. It's still a big game company, but I believe that what they do is done with their whole heart and it's not so much about the bottom line, even though they are an organization that needs to make money to function. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Did you have something else to say, Zox, or?
No. You're good, bro.
Okay.
Go ahead, man.
So I wanted to round this conversation off with one final question. It's a little bit more of a lighthearted question. So, who would you say? And listen, I always tell people think that the hardest part of Wuthering Waves is going to be the combat, right? Not at all. I think the hardest part of the game is choosing which character to play
Oh, I already
because
know the answer.
they're all so good.
Yeah.
So, who is your, at least from what you've seen so far, who's your favorite character and why?
The Sephiroth one. What's his name?
Oh, Cal
Kalkaro.
Calcaro.
It's called
Yeah,
Sephiroth.
Oh, sorry. I thought
Yeah.
it was
Just call him
Calcharo.
Sephiroth.
That and I actually was really enjoying the gameplay. I pulled and I got the monk. What's her name?
Yanshin.
Yan Shen.
Johnson, yeah.
She's good. I think I lost my 50-50 though. I think she was the 50-50 Oh no, I got her on the beginner banner. Yeah, that's
Oh
right.
yeah, you're good. You won.
Yeah, I
You
won.
won.
Yeah.
You're good. You're
Yeah,
good.
I really she's really fun to play. And also oh my gosh, what's her name? Don Jin, the girl who's
Oh, yes, Don Jin is
redhead girl.
amazing.
yeah, with her eyes when they turn.
Mark
Yeah.
my words, you're gonna play her more than some of your 5-star characters.
Yeah.
Like,
Really?
I'm
Mhm.
telling you, like I've heard it from so many people. They were like, I find myself playing like some of the 4-stars, and they were talking about like Danjin, Tao Chi, and like Sanhua. And I think Yang Yang arguably could be in that conversation because
Mhm.
they feel so good to play. I think Connor actually mentioned this on the last podcast, where it was just the fact that the 5-star characters, while great, mind you, they almost present this opportunity of like ease of access, where it's like if you get the 5-star character, it's going to be, you know, a lot of damage, and the game will feel a little bit easier. Whereas with the 4-star characters, you have to be a bit more intentional, and their characters, like, you have to work for it a little bit harder, but their kits are just so optimized as 4-stars.
Yeah.
But even
Gian and-
Rover,
No,
Yeah,
go ahead,
Rover.
Marco, you're good.
oh sorry, even Rover, the character itself is like the first viable MC I would ever be like, I'll keep Rover in my party.
100%.
Dude,
100%.
honestly, it's crazy. I just made a video talking about that, and like it, because even with that, it goes into like literally that. I call it the ooga booga mentality, where like you pick up the 5-star and it's like, woo, he just juggles everyone. Whereas
Yeah.
like Yang Yang does the same thing, but you have to position her correctly,
Mhm.
so you have to work a little bit harder. And that's one thing I appreciate with what Kuro's done is they've made it to where it's like like it's not really a paywall, but it's like what you're paying for is for the ooga booga versus you can have this for free, but you might have to put a little bit more effort into using it.
And they're viable and good, yeah.
Yeah, and they're viable and good. And I feel like even with the MC is arguably one of the strongest, easily most scalable units that you probably are going to have on your account. So yeah, they've done like really well.
Yeah, she's definitely not the strongest character, but like for the past like day or two, I've just been soloing the whole game with Tao Chi, like just for fun because I just like the character. I like her kid. She's not the strongest by any means. I fought the bosses with full team compositions. I just still have fun soloing with Tao Chi. Like it's just I
She's so
just still
fun.
really enjoy it.
Yeah.
last,
No,
last, okay,
no, go ahead. Go ahead. You're good.
last question. So far, because I know you're still working through it, favorite boss soundtrack out of the ones that you've heard up to this point, because I know you've seen Crownless. Even though I'm gonna be honest with you, I think that Crownless's fight is glitched, because if you played the CBT one in the second phase of the fight, it would go into that kind of like heavy metal part. That's not there right now. It's crazy. Like if you go back to fight him, it's not there. It just repeats the same song. So I would say for the Crownless, include that in your contemplation. But between, like I said, you said Crownless, the Rider Boss, Scar, I think maybe if you fought anybody else, who would you say?
Scar was really cool, but I have to say the whole sequence with, I think it's Gion, the dragon.
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, that was the moment that I was like, "Ooh, we're cooking."
So you played a story quest, or
When, no, the when you first meet him,
When
when you go to the
Wow.
battlefield,
Yep. It's a trial quest.
and
got
that
you.
clicked in. I was like, "Yeah, that's cool. That's the Vanguard sound I know," and that was a really fun. I was like, "Yeah, we're here."
I'm trying to remember what song that is, because isn't that the Impermanence Hair? I think it's the Impermanence Hair boss there, but do they use the Impermanence Hair song there? I'm trying to remember.
I'd have to go back
I
and
don't know if
check.
anybody else-
I was-
That's what I mean. I was trying to think.
To your
That'd be
I wanted to-
interesting.
Life, I wanted to add to that the Crownless thing. So I
Yeah.
just had a crazy thought, like if they decide to pull this off in the game with the music alone. So right now, the way the bosses are working in the open world, every 10 levels that you go on the bosses, they add like extra mechanics to the bosses.
Oh, like
So
Oh, I see.
if
different phase.
every time you go higher and higher, the music changes for every boss, like little by little, right? They don't have the full soundtrack. They're just giving you like pieces of the full soundtrack until you get to like the final top level of
That
that's cool.
that's
if they
not gonna
decide to-
happen.
that could happen probably.
No. So I'm saying that could happen, but it wouldn't happen every level, because we've already jumped a couple levels and the track hasn't changed. So maybe there might be like a threshold
Yeah.
where it does. Like maybe like once you pass Union level 30 or something,
Yeah.
or Union level 40, and then that happens. So I think, maybe.
If they
Yeah,
cook
let
that,
Crow
I think that'd
cook,
be
right?
amazing. That would be so amazing.
Let them cook. Well, thank you so much, Marco, for coming through. We definitely appreciate you coming. And like I always say this to every guest, we want you back. This is a conversation. This is a back and forth, right? So once we get closer to the game's launch, we've gotten like a patch or two in, so forth, so on. You are more than welcome, as long as we didn't scare you off, hopefully.
No, I love that idea.
Awesome. So I always try to do this. Everybody gets an opportunity as we wrap up to kind of just shout their channels out, just in case somebody might have forgotten. So Marco, I'll let you start off, and then we'll go around.
Sure, yeah. You can find me on Twitter, Marco D Meatball. You can find me on YouTube, Marco Meatball, and that's pretty much where I live. I'm also on Twitch, Marco Meatball, and I stream Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, pretty much the whole day. And then there's videos pretty much like every day, every other day. It's a nonstop grind. So Marco Meatball is on my main YouTube channel.
All right.
Awesome.
Yeah, you can find me Zoxuskun Woa, Twitter Zoxuskun, Twitch Zoxuskun. All I talk about is Wuthering Waves, so that's basically that. So
And at Connor's Thoughts on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, basically at Connor's Thoughts on all the platforms. Some of them have an underscore at the end if you're having a really hard time, but you should be able to find me there. And I just also want to say another personal thank you, Marco, for coming on. Really,
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
appreciated
Of course,
having you.
of course. My pleasure.
Lobopixel at Twitch, Lobopixel Gaming on YouTube. Basically, I'm just really focusing on Wuthering Waves content primarily right now, because I'm just really excited about the game and about everything there. And I'm just truly happy playing this game, and I can't wait for the global release. And thank you again, Marco, for joining as well. Really excited to have you here and stuff. And we had pretty interesting topics to talk about here. It was really, really cool. I learned a lot, actually. So thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
And Life Lessons in CNL. You can find me just about everywhere with that tag, except for Twitter. It's No Christ, No Life. I'm trying to think if I should change it or not. I don't know. People seem to like the name, so I might keep it. But I do Wuthering Waves content, motivational gaming commentary. A lot of people are probably wondering, well, where are the motivational gaming commentary videos? They are coming. We got into CBT2, so I have a lot to work with. So you look forward and keep your eyes peeled. for that. And again, in similar vein to what Connor said, we really appreciate you coming, Marco. It's been a pleasure
Of course.
among pleasures, and we look forward to this conversation continuing. So until next time, we will catch you all later. Thank you, Rovercast. Peace.
Yeah.